Today, I'm playing high-stakes poker at the Beau Rivage in Biloxi, Mississippi. I almost didn't want to film or post this session because this room is a hidden gem in the South. I get asked all the time about my top 5 spots to play cards at, and tonight you'll see why the Beau always makes the list. I'm jumping into their premier 5-10 no-limit hold'em game with 9,600 big ones on the table. With the way these sessions roll, you already know every single chip is going to be in play. We're getting into some huge pots tonight, but none bigger than a massive collision with pocket aces on the very last hand of the night. You're not going to want to miss this one. And in the very first hand of the night, I look down at 4 deuce of hearts from the $25 straddle. There's a raise to 75 bucks, and I put in the call, going off to the flop here with 4 deuce of hearts, and it comes ace 8-5. I have a gut shot to the straight, and I have backdoor hearts, so when Forrest bets out for 75 bucks, of course, I'm going absolutely nowhere and put in the call. The turn comes a 10 of diamonds. We don't love that, but it appears that Forrest doesn't love it as well. He checks behind, exercising some pot control. In the river comes the 5 of hearts. Now an interesting spot where I'm left with just 4 high. Obviously, I'm not going to win at showdown, and he could easily have a hand like king queen, king jack, maybe even a hand like pocket sixes or pocket sevens. I could put in a gross spot here, so I decide to bet out for the size of the pot, $300. He makes a few hand motions, tilts his head, and then ends up calling. Well, we are not going to be good with 4 high. Forrest had ace jack offsuit. Nice check from him on the turn, and we are losing the first hand of the night, but the poker gods are on our side here by gifting me my favorite hand, pocket sevens, and I'm in the $25 straddle once again. There's a raise and a 3-bet in front of us. If you thought I'm folding my favorite hand to a 3-bet to 250, you are sadly mistaken. I put in the call, and the initial raiser does as well. Off to a flop 3 ways, and you can clearly see why pocket sevens is the hand of the wolf, because it comes 9-7-4, bang! We flop middle set. I sneakily start with a check, and the action checks over to the 3-better, who checks behind, bringing in the 8 of hearts, and I decide to bet out for Super Cinco de Mayo here, $555. Not one, but both players put in the call, and that's why playing poker in Mississippi is wild. We are still going 3 ways to the river, which comes a board pairing, 4 of hearts. I absolutely love this one. There's $2,500 in the middle, and I decided to go for about the size of the pot, just a tad bit over, for $2,555. One by one, though, my opponents fall. They can't hold on, perhaps. I should have thrown in a check or gone for a smaller sizing, trying to target a hand like ace 9, 9-10, maybe even a hand like 7-8 for a counterfeit 2 pair. Might get a little curious thinking I have busted spades, but when I go large, it's very polarizing, and I wanted someone to call me down light, but they didn't. So instead, we're winning $5,000. No complaints there. Almost $1,600 in profit in that hand alone, which brings us into the next one. I look down at 2/5 of a royal flush, king queen of diamonds from the low jack. The $25 straddle is out there, and I make it $75 to go. The player who has position on me to my direct left cold calls the 75, and the straddler completes. So we're going 3 ways to a flop, which now brings an ace and a 10, followed by the 8 of diamonds. So I have the front door Broadway draw and backdoor diamonds. So I check, and the action checks through, giving me the king high flush draw on the 6 of diamonds turn. I now fire out for $155 as a semi bluff. I really have no idea what I'm doing here, but a little Mississippi poker strategy. If you don't know what you're doing, neither do they, so just lean into it. And we're gonna get called by the guy on our direct left, and the straddler folds. We're gonna have to take it to the streets here against Steven when the 8 of spades comes out, and I decide to go for $355. Steven just raises me to $1,150, and you see my hand flinch there. I was gonna turn over my bluff, assuming that he just called me, but now he raised me. Obviously, I'm just Hollywooding here. The cards are gonna hit the muck, which they do eventually, and he graciously turns his cards over for the vlog.
Good for the vlog.
Oh, straight, right?
Yeah.
And exposes 7-9 offsuit for the binked straight on the turn. The board pairing 8 gave him a little bit of caution, but he still went for the raise. Congrats to you, Steven. You caught this fish bluffing. Big news. This Sunday, April 26th at 1 p.m. Pacific, I'm hosting a free-to-enter poker tournament with over $13,000 in prizes up for grabs. I've been hooked on Pokemon recently and thought it would be fun to partner with my YouTube buddy flipping cardboard to give away 5 super valuable cards to the lucky winners. It's a bounty tournament where the person who knocks me out will get a Gengar VMAX worth $2.4 thousand, and the person who knocks Dawson out will get a Charizard EX worth $2,000. Then first place gets a $4,000 Umbreon, second gets a $3,000 Nidoking, and third gets a $1,500 Charizard. All you have to do to enter this insane tournament is make a free account on clubwptgold.com using promo code Wolfgang, of course. Then toggle over to the tournament section and filter by No Limit Hold'em, Free Roll, and then Turbo. Then click register for 0 chips and you're good to go for Sunday. I'll put the link to register in the description below. All right, Jack 10 of clubs from the +2. I'll make it $75 to go, and Steven 3-bets me to $225. I try to bribe him with a Wolfgang poker sticker. If you guys see me out in the wild at your local casino, come up to me, say hi, ask for a picture, and I'll probably give you a bang sticker or one of the stickers I just gave Steven. But that is definitely a bribe. I'm trying to get him to play soft against me here, but now I flop myself something interesting. On a Queen 5 deuce board with 2 clubs, I start with a check, and surprisingly he checks behind. On the turn, the 7 of clubs, bang, we have the Queen high flush in this $500 pot, and I fire out now for $355, hoping Steven puts in the call like he did in that last hand, and he does. He obliges, finds the call, and $1,200 going off to the 6 of hearts on the river, which changes absolutely nothing. There's $1,200 in the middle, and I bet out for $755, and he's thinking about it for a really long time here. I'm hoping he puts in the call, and you know what they say, think long, think wrong, but that does not apply here. Steven finds the fold, and then he puts my sticker straight onto his phone case. So even though we didn't get a little bit of extra value there from Steven, perhaps in the future someone will see that and subscribe to the YouTube channel, which, by the way, if you aren't subscribed right now and are watching, what are you doing? Scroll down and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. All right, what's better than turning a flush? Well, looking down at 2 aces, pocket aces from the button, there's a raise to $75, and of course, I make it $225 to go. We get a cold caller, and then the original raiser 4-bets me to $675. What is my life? This is why I drove all the way down to Mississippi to get me some of this action. So I have a decision now. Do I just call the 4-bet, which would allow the guy behind me to call for pretty cheap, getting great odds, or do I 5-bet now to $1,255? Yes, that's what I'm gonna do. Just min click it and disincentivize him from putting in the call. I don't really want to go 3 ways, but if he's willing to put in $1,200 or even more, then so be it. Bless his heart, but it is not to be. He folds his cards actions back over to the 4-better in seat number 1 in that highlighter yellow sweater. That is a great sweater, sir. Please put in the call. Yes, he does. We're in position to a flop with over $2,500 in the middle, and it comes 10, 4, 3 with 2 spades. Pretty clean, all things considered. He might have pocket 10s, but other than that, I should be ahead. But now what's this? He jams his entire stack in the middle, nearly a pot-sized bet, and obviously I snap call him, and we are going to go off to a run out here, which comes the 5 of hearts, followed by the deuce of hearts. I turn over my aces right away. I don't want to slow roll him, and he mucks his cards face down. So I guess we'll never know what he had, but one thing's for sure, he played it right into my stack.
Thank you. It's a little early.
We're gonna battle now from the big blind with pocket 5s. There's a raise to $75, and I put in the call, and Steven in the straddle, now 3-bets to $300, sensing some dead money. Well, both of us aren't dead money. We're gonna put in the call and go 3 ways to a flop here in a $900 pot, which comes Jack 5 deuce. Bang, we flop middle set. I don't always flop sets, but when I do, it's expensive for everybody else. Steven now bets out for $475, and Lakin in the small blind puts in the call. I put in the call as well. I also could check raise here and charge everyone for their draws, but that's not what we decided to do. And we are going off to the turn, which comes the 6 of hearts, and unfortunately the action checks through. Steven, what are you doing? Why did you check behind? Now I would have gone for the check raise, but the river comes the 7 of diamonds. We obviously don't love that because it brings in the most obvious front door flush draw, and Lakin in the small blind now checks it over to me. There's $2,300 in the middle, and I bet bet out for 700 and Cinco de Mayo, and the action's on Steven, who pretty quickly decides to fold his cards. My last hope lies in the hands of Lakin, who's thinking about it a little bit longer. Perhaps he has a pocket pair like 10s or 9s. I don't think he would be folding a jack here. If he does, he's an absolute savage, but at the end of the day, we're not going to get any more of his 15,000 chips sitting in front of him in his stack, and he folds his cards, and that just shows you guys that poker is a simple game, especially when I'm winning. All right, Forrest is in the straddle, and I make it $75 to go with ace-jack offsuit from the cutoff. He puts in the call, and the flop comes ace-7-3 rainbow. When the action's on me, I bet out for Cinco de Mayo, and Forrest puts in the call. The turn now comes a 10 of clubs. When he checks it over to me again, I exercise a little bit of pot control and check behind, bringing in another club, the deuce on the river. I have the jack of clubs in my hand, and he checks it over to me for a third time. So having that flush blocker card, I want to go for a little bit of thin value here, and I fire out for $155. But Forrest is a good player, and he's not only going to fold or call, sometimes he's going to have some raises in his range. I'd expect him to be pretty value heavy here, but a good player like him is also going to have some bluffs, so I can't just snap fold my hand. I have to think about it a little bit longer when he makes it $450 to go. At the end of the day, I get a little bit curious here and put in the call, and he turns over the king 5 of clubs, so just the nut flush there from Forrest in the straddle, taking down a 1200. And if losing a pot to Forrest wasn't bad enough, he's now interested in seeing some traditional Ukrainian dance, and no joke, I actually used to do this on Saturdays back in grade school and high school, so I had to bust out some moves, see if he would have joined in, but apparently he doesn't have the moves or the flexibility like I still do. But this isn't the reason you guys are watching the video. How about a cheeky 4-bet here over a raise and a 3-bet from Forrest? And of course, that is super strong. I have to have aces, kings, queens, or ace-king suited, right? Forrest folds his cards. Thanks for the chips, Forrest. I'll be sure to take good care of them. Don't worry. All right, a few more hands to go here. I'm in the small blind once again and make it $100 over that $25 straddle. Brandon puts in the call, and one other player does as well, and the flop comes 10-6-3 with 2 clubs. I decide to start with the check, and Brandon fires out for $200. We lose our 3-way. I put in the call, and we turn the gut shot to the jack high straight as well as the jack high flush draw. So a lot of outs here. I check it over to Brandon. He checks behind, and now the board comes the 6 of hearts. It wasn't one of our like 20 outs on the river, but still there's $700 in the middle to fight for, and I just have 8 high, and that's definitely not going to be good enough to win. And when he checks behind on the turn, that's not very strong, so all of those reasons are pointing to me going for a river bluff here for $655. There's a problem with going for a bluff in Mississippi, and that's the fact that someone at the table is going to call you down just to see what happens. I'm hoping Brandon isn't that type of player in this hand. He thinks about it for a very long time and then ultimately folds his cards. That is the desired outcome and exactly what we wanted Brandon to do. And of course, I had to show him the 8 high for the bluff. And that brings us into the last hand of the night, the one I teased in the intro, and you guys are gonna love this one. There's a raise to $100, and I look down at pocket aces for the second time in this session, and this time we're trying to win a bigger pot. I make it $300 to go, and Brandon puts in the call on my left, followed by the guy who made it $100. He tosses in 200 more bucks, and we're off to a flop, which comes, no joke you guys, ace 10-7, bang, we flop top set, aka the nuts on this board. The player in middle position checks it over to me, and in between 2 opponents, I usually start with a check. Also, given the fact I have 2 of the aces, there's only 1 left in the deck. I want to incentivize players to put money in as a semi-bluff or let them catch up on the turn, but Brandon's gonna put money in right here, right now. He makes it $600 to go, and the player in seat 1 can't fold fast enough. So now I have a fun spot. I could check raise, but I think that's playing my hand way too fast. I think just calling here and allowing him to continue bluffing if he is on the turn is the much smarter route, and the turn comes the 8 of hearts. I check it over to him, and he tries to go for the check, but then knocks his water bottle over. It would have been hilarious if the cap was left off, and that brings in the 9 of diamonds on the river, putting a 4-liner to the straight. So now any jack or any 6 would have that 5 card straight. I think it's much more likely he has a jack, but I'm not putting him on it just yet. There's $2,100 in the middle now, and I gotta go for a bet. I can't let him check behind with a hand like ace 5, ace jack, ace queen, maybe even a hand like queens, kings, or jacks. So let's go for value here. I bet out for $555, just a milky sizing, trying to target all those pocket pairs between the 10 and the ace. And I'm expecting him to call with a lot of hands and fold with a lot of hands as well. What I don't expect him to do is raise it up now to $2,500 after he checks behind on the turn. Does he have a hand like queen jack, king jack, pocket jacks? Well, that's definitely a possibility. And when I tell you I tank so long in this hand, I just don't want to fold my cards, but it feels so clearly that he has a jack. But at the same time, I've top set of aces. Have you ever been in a spot where you just know you're beat, but you just can't fold your hand? Because what are the odds you get pocket aces pre-flop and then flop top set only for the board to run out 4 in a row? Well, that's a spot I find myself in, and I'm really wanting to fold, but there's $5,200 in the middle, and I gotta put in $2,000 more dollars. I just know Brandon has the jack. I think about it a little bit longer. I grab a stack of black chips. I think about folding. I think about calling, and then ultimately decide it would be boring to fold. Folding is not the way. I put in the call, and he turns over pocket queens. He turned queens into a bluff. What a creative move there from Brandon, trying to get me to fold an ace. Little did he know I had 2 aces, but still, that's not an easy call. And I'm gonna be folding my top set at a small frequency. Unfortunately for him, it did not work out, but fortunately for us, we're taking down $7,100 in this hand alone. But Brandon's a good sport, someone who I've actually kept in touch with after filming this video. So if you're watching this, buddy, and you forgot about this hand, sorry to open up a closed wound. I bring my chips over to the cage and cash out for $18,130, so a profit of $8,530 in just a few hours. If you guys like this video, there's 2 more on your screen right now. Click one of those to keep on watching. Good luck on the felt, you guys, and as always, I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.